In today's video we will talk about sanction circumventions attempts to learn about some of the red flags financial institutions should keep under their radars. So let's get right into today's video. Hi, I'm Marco Beranzoni and this is FinCrime Agent, my YouTube channel talking about financial crime related topics and anti-money laundering. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please hit the subscribe button below and press the bell so you can get notified once new videos are going live on my channel. Also check the description of this video where you will find useful links and the link to my patreon.com page where with a small contribution you can receive unique material created for my Patreon community. So with the housekeeping out of the way, let's get started and talk about sanction circumvention attempts. Today I will list some of the red flags that financial institutions should be aware of and explain a bit more about sanction circumvention attempts. Nowadays, individuals, organizations and even states can use very sophisticated methods in order to circumvent the sanctions detection systems that are in place at financial institutions. When those criminals manage to intentionally circumvent sanctions, financial institutions can unintentionally facilitate those sanctions evasions. When those circumstances take place and sanctions evasions are successful, there will be an impact on both sides. The first side is on the society, where sanctions targets are able to access financial instruments, and on the other side with financial institutions, because obviously they will not be complying with the sanctions regulations. Financial institutions must therefore have strong detection systems not only to identify the possible match with a sanction target, but also to understand when there could be red flags correlated to the activities for sanctions evasions. In this video, I will cover 3 of the sanctions evasion attempts red flags, but there will be many more, and those 3 that I will talk about are payment resubmission, shell companies and trade finance product. Payments resubmission is the first one I want to talk about. This takes place when a transaction is initially rejected by the financial institution and then funds are credited back to the remitter or to the customer. At that point, the same payment is submitted again. However, a portion of those information are stripped out in order to not make the connection with the sanctioned entity. This is one of the classic way where criminals are trying to do circumvention attempt at the payment level, and there are now systems in place that a financial institution can implement to identify those resubmitted payment and manage to match when those are connected with a transaction that was already rejected because of sanctions reasons. The second red flag I want to talk about is around shell companies. Shell companies are already well known in the anti-money laundering space for concealing the information of the beneficial owners. And we know that in some of those tax haven jurisdictions, the processes for onboarding are more relaxed, and therefore some of the international sanctioned targets are able to set up company accounts in those jurisdictions. So beside the anti-money laundering aspect, it's important to raise flags on shell companies registered in those tax haven jurisdictions also for sanctions evasion attempts. The reason is that the relaxed KYC and CDD process implemented in those jurisdictions could allow sanction targets to register with those companies and therefore access financial products by using the name of those shell companies registered abroad. Therefore, it's important that red flags on shell companies are not just flagged for the reason of anti-money laundering, but also with a concern of economic sanctions for the evasion attempts. The third area I want to talk about in terms of red flags for sanctions circumvention attempts is trade finance. Within trade finance, there will be more sophisticated ways to circumvent economic sanctions. This can include fake documentations submitted for a specific trade, concealing the actual route for the goods that should go from one location to another, the quantity, for example, of the goods, or even the actual goods that are being shipped. Those includes the use of falsified documents indicating false shipping routes or fake details about the actual products that are involved. Those are not very easy to identify, and staff training coupled with the implementation of a digitalized trade finance process can support the identification of circumvention attempts. Some red flags to be aware of is the amendments of trade finance documentation after the first submission, and making sure that all the documentations are always screened against the sanctions list. Some of the red flags to be aware of within the trade finance space is the docking at countries in close proximity of sanctioned countries. Those could facilitate the exchange of goods in open sea and therefore allowing those sanctions countries or targets to receive goods they are not supposed to receive. As I mentioned earlier, these are just some of the red flags financial institutions should be aware of. There are a list which is much longer and include, for example, the use of correspondent banking with nesting activities where the financial institution is not aware about the customers' transactions going through their network, for example. Other red flags can be seen within the customer KYC profile, so it's important that a questionnaire including specific questions on economic sanctions are provided to the customers to understand if the customer risk is actually within the appetite of the organization and if it could at some point trigger a risk for sanction circumvention attempts. Or one more flag could be the product fitness, that's how I call it, and that would be the understanding if the products that are received by the customer, financial products obviously, are in line with the business that they are running, or if there is a misalignment, understanding if that can support the facilitation of sanction circumvention attempts. The information shared on this video today were very high level, and as I mentioned, these are just a portion of the red flags financial institutions should be aware of for sanction circumvention attempts. If you want to read more about these subjects, I'm going to leave some useful links in the description, but I hope you still have learned something today. Please leave me your feedback in the comments of this video and let me know if there is any other specific subjects within financial crime or anti-money laundering you want me to cover in future videos. With that, I'm at the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button right below of this video and check the description also if you want to support FinCrime Agent on patreon.com. Again, thank you for watching. I hope this was useful, and until next time, see you soon.